Hello guys, welcome back. Today we are going to continue with our fire extinguishing systems. In the previous classes, we have already understood what is fire, how the fire catches, and what are the different systems through which we can detect the fire. Okay, today we are going to start with the extinguishing system. How when the fire is detected, we can extinguish it. Okay, for this, students who are going to appear for DGC model examination 14, 11 and 15, this is important for this. Okay, so let us go ahead with that. The first thing is we should understand what are the characteristic of the extinguishing agent. Extinguishing agent means the gas or chemical that I'm going to use to extinguish a fire. Okay, so first requirement is it should have a long storage life. Understand this part. When I say long storage life, that means when I'm storing it inside a cylinder, it should remain inside the cylinder and should not damage the component. That means cylinder should itself not get deteriorated. Okay, or agents quality should not get deteriorated. That is what it meant by the long storage life. Then this agent, when it is kept in the aircraft, is going to fly at a very high height, right? It is not going to remain only on the ground. The aeroplane is going to fly in the stratosphere, where the temperature can reach to minus 56 degrees Celsius. If the agent freezes and at that time there is a fire, the fire extinguisher cannot be used. Okay, and the last is it should be it can be used on both the flammable liquid. See, it's not necessary that when there is a fire in the aeroplane, it will catch only to the fuel or to the hydraulic oil or to the lubricating oil. It may catch to the upholstery material, that is your curtains and everything in the aircraft, as well as there may be a fire electrical equipment because there are fans, light, AC, everything is running, right? So there are lots of electrical components. The fire can start there also. So whatever extinguishing agent we will use should be effective on all the different types of fire. Okay, yeah? Now there are two main types of the agent that are used in aviation. One is the inert cold gas agents and another one is the halogenated hydrocarbon. We are going to start with inert cold gas first. There are two types of inert cold gas beta. One is the carbon dioxide, second one is the nitrogen. Both of them can be used as the fire extinguisher. Okay. In the carbon dioxide, what we do is we take the carbon dioxide gas, okay, and what we'll do is we will pressurize the carbon dioxide gas and fill it inside the cylinder. Okay, so what will happen is carbon dioxide will get liquefied, and when it is liquefied, we'll store it inside a container. Okay, then what we can do is carbon dioxide itself has enough pressure that when I'm discharging this pressure is enough for carbon dioxide to get converted into a gas and come out. But sometimes what happens is if there is a cold climate, the pressure generated by carbon dioxide is not enough for carbon dioxide to come out. So what we do is we add some amount, very trace amount of nitrogen gas also. So what this nitrogen gas is going to do, it is going to push the carbon dioxide outward. Okay. Now what will happen is suppose this area was in fire. Okay, let us say this area caught fire. Okay, this material is burned. Okay, so what carbon dioxide will do is when you are putting it onto the fire, it forms a layer. Okay, it forms a layer of a dry ice. White color powder will be formed on this. So what will happen is oxygen cannot reach the material which is burning. So if I remove the oxygen out of the picture, fire will be stopped. Right? In the beginning only I told you there are three things required for the fire. Okay, if there are three requirements met, then the fire will start. They are source of fire, fuel, and oxygen. So what I'm doing here, I am eliminating the oxygen. That is called as the smothering effect or oxygen dilution. That means you are reducing the quantity of an oxygen reaching the surface which is burned. Okay, carbon dioxide is heavier, so it will form a layer. Okay, what happens is when I'm operating this, carbon dioxide is pushed out. Okay, and as soon as it is pushed out, it comes in contact with the atmospheric air. There it will absorb the temperature from the atmospheric air and will get converted into ice. Okay, carbon dioxide is effective on many types of fire, but it is not effective on the chemical fires. So those chemicals which produce their own oxygen. Okay, that means if something is there, if chemical is there, and you start burning, like let's say nitrate. Okay, उसके अंदर कहीं पे अगर oxygen है, and you start burning, it will produce oxygen, right? So it is forming the layer and preventing the oxygen from entering, right? What was it doing? Let us say this was burning. It was forming a layer above this, and it was avoiding the oxygen from entering inside, thereby preventing the fire, right? So what I'm doing is, in this case, the chemical is itself producing the oxygen. This will itself produce the oxygen, so it does not require the outside oxygen support, right? So it will be not effective. As well as magnesium and titanium fire. That is, if they are using the material magnesium and titanium on the aeroplane, there this fire will not be. Okay. Next type of the fire extinguishing agent is the nitrogen. Nitrogen is double effective with the carbon dioxide. Okay. That means for the same amount of spray, this is double. Okay. It also extinguishes by the same effect, that is dilution and smothering. Main disadvantage of using nitrogen, okay, is that nitrogen is the chirogenic liquid. You should understand what does the word chirogenic means. Chirogenic means any liquid, okay, any liquid. If you want to if you want to keep the liquid in the liquid state, you have to reduce the temperature, right? Temperature should be reduced. So any liquid which requires a very low temperature, okay, very low temperature to remain in liquid state, such a liquid is called as the chirogenic liquid. So nitrogen is the chirogenic liquid. To maintain the temperature, I need to maintain the temperature as minus 320 Fahrenheit. This is such a low temperature. So to obtain this temperature, we require a special construction made up of DIVA. Okay, it is basically a double layer construction which creates a vacuum like this. Okay, in which we store the nitrogen gas. So it becomes very, very expensive. Hence, we avoid nitrogen. Okay, one doubt that most of the students should get over here is, how can I say this is an inert gas? I know nitrogen is not an inert gas, right? But we are not talking only about the nitrogen atom. We are talking about the nitrogen molecule, that is N2. When the nitrogen atom combines with another nitrogen atom, it shares 3 electrons. You must have done it in 12th chemistry. Okay, it forms a molecule, and molecule is chemically stable, hence we count it as the inert gas. Same goes with your carbon dioxide. Okay, last one is the halogenated hydrocarbon agent. Like inert cold gas, there was a gas used, carbon dioxide and nitrogen. Next one is the halogenated hydrocarbon. As the word itself suggests, halogenated. Halogenated means we are using halogens. What are halogens? In a chemistry, we have studied that in the group 7 element. Okay, chlorine, fluorine, bromine, iodine, entire series, group 7 element, they are the halogen. And hydrocarbons we have studied in the organic chemistry in your 12th standard. Hydrocarbon are the compound made up of only carbon and hydrogen. So suppose I have a methane. Let us take an example of methane. Methane is CH4, right? So here one carbon is attached to 4 hydrogen atoms. If I remove one hydrogen and instead of this hydrogen, I fill it with the halogen, let us say chlorine or bromine, any halogen, then it will become a halogenated hydrocarbon. That means halogen has been inserted. Okay, how does this extinguish the fire? It will extinguish the fire by chemical interference. So let us take an example. Let us say this is a piece of a wood. Okay, and I am igniting it over here. So the flame is started over here and the wood is going to burn. You have seen that when the wood starts burning, it starts from one end and then the fire slowly travels and goes toward the other end. Okay, so what actually is happening is, when you're burning the wood, this element over here, it is burning. Okay, and it is breaking into these small fragments. Okay, these fragments give the energy to the next molecule to burn. Then this will start burning, it will get divided into fragments. Then this fragment will go and give the energy to the next molecule. Okay, same thing. This will burn, this will go and give the energy to the next molecule. So when it has been a fragment form, if I react over here and make the fragment into some other gas which does not support the combustion, the fire will be stopped. Understood how fire is progressing? When you are burning at one end, the when the material burns, it releases the energy. Okay, and it gets broken down into the small fragments. Each fragment gives energy to the next molecule. So when it is transferring the energy, if I can block that energy, that is called as the chemical interference. When the suppose this is the fragment, and this is the next molecule where it was going to give the energy. If I put a chemical over here, that is halogenated hydrocarbon over here, and I make some other gas which escapes out, then cannot give energy to the next molecule to burn. That's how we stop the fire. Such mechanism of stopping the fire is called as the chemical interference. It has got other two names also: chemical cooling and energy transfer blockage. You know, energy transfer blockage, energy is not being transferred. Chemically cooling, that means you are not allowing the flame to reach a higher temperature. This is more effective than your smothering. In a smothering, what happens is, suppose this was burning, I am making a layer over this. Okay, oxygen is not in. But suppose somewhere ahead, yahan fire start ho gaya, then the fire will continue on. Understood? So, how chemical interference is ensuring that this does not happen? Because it is reacting with the fragments which is supplying the energy. Okay, beta? Since halogenated hydrocarbon, these are the reagent. As I told you, they are combining with what chemical fragment and they will form some other gas. Okay, beta? Let us say we are in the passenger compartment. Okay, we are inside the aeroplane, or we are inside the cabin as a passenger compartment. We are flying in the aeroplane. Suppose there is a fire in one of the chair, certain thing happened and there was a fire on the chair. So what will happen is that chair will burn, right? Let us say that this is the chair. It is starting burning and here there are the passengers. Okay. I use the halogenated hydrocarbon to extinguish the fire. Fire is finished. Okay, let us say fire is eliminated. But gas is produced. Okay. This person is in the cabin. He will breathe the gas. If this gas is poisonous, it will kill the person. Understanding the dilemma here? We are stopping the fire, but we are creating the gas which can be poisonous. So this is one of the thing that we have to see, that which type of halogen hydrocarbon we should use so that the byproduct that we are making is not poisonous. For an example, there is a carbon tetrachloride which is very good fire extinguisher. If you use carbon tetrachloride to extinguish the fire, what will happen is it will produce a phosgene gas. Anyone who is aware of our history knows that phosgene gas was used in the World War II to kill the people, right? So we don't want that to happen. We don't want our passenger to die because of this phosgene gas. So what we will do, we will ensure that whatever halogenated hydrocarbon we are using is not toxic. So what manufacturer, that is FAA and DGC and everyone has come together and done is, they have given the toxicity rating to each of the chemical form, the chemical that we can use. Okay, remember this is the DGCA question. Here you have to remember that lower number means more toxic, higher number means least toxic. DGCA will ask you a question out of 3 and 4, which is the more toxic? So you should say 3. Out of 1 and 4, who is more toxic? 1. Okay, so they have given the definition also. This is for theory purpose. You can just read the definition, understand what happens. Okay, toxicity rating 1 means if the gas is present only in 1 to 1%. That means suppose out of the 100 molecules of the air, only 1 molecule of this gas is present, and the person is breathing this gas for 5 minutes, then it is lethal. Okay, that means he can die. Such an example is sulfur dioxide. Another gas, if the concentration is half to 1%, same thing, half to 1% means out of 100 molecules of the air, only 1 molecule is of this gas. Okay, and now in this case, the person is breathing for half an hour, then it will become lethal. 5 minutes it will not be lethal, for half an hour it will become lethal. Example is ammonia and methyl bromide, also called as bromomethane. Next one is the concentration increase 2 to 2.5%, and you are increasing the time also, then it becomes lethal. Example is carbon tetrachloride, chloroform. Okay, then see beta, if the concentration we are maintaining 2 to 2.5%, but for 2 hours it is not lethal. After 2 hours it will become lethal. Then it will be categorized as the plasmotoxicity. Methyl chloride, ethyl bromide are the example in this toxicity rating. Class 5 is the very easy definition. 5, it just says less than 5. Sorry, it says less than 4, more than 6. Okay. Example is methylene chloride, carbon dioxide, ethene, propane, butane. Hence, carbon dioxide can be used as a fire extinguisher. Class C, 20% up to 2 hours, no harmful effect. Example is bromo trifluoromethane. This is a very favorite DGCA question. They will ask you which type of fire extinguisher is most important in the cabin where the passenger are traveling? So we should say bromo trifluoromethane. That means if a passenger are traveling inside the cabin and I want to use a fire extinguisher inside a cabin, I will not use any other type. I will use only bromo trifluoromethane in aviation. Okay. Now we have already understood that halogenated hydrocarbon can be used to extinguish the fire. Each halogenated hydrocarbon is given a particular halon number to identify. See, understand this time. When I say bromo trifluoromethane and I want to purchase this and I go into the shop and say, please give me bromo trifluoromethane, it will become very difficult for me and him to understand, right? So better way will be just to give him one number. He will just give it to me, right? Okay. So according to this, halon numbers are given to the candidates. How do we give a halon number? Let us say halon, and then there would be the number. Okay. Generally, there are only 4 numbers. Iodine is used only in some cases. We don't use iodine because it is very expensive. Okay. So we do avoid iodine. So carbon, fluorine, chlorine, and bromine. Since it's a halon means halogenated hydrocarbon, that means there is a carbon hydrogen present, and these are the halogens which are added. Okay, so first number of the halon always indicate number of the carbon atom present in the molecule. Second number indicates fluorine. Third number indicates chlorine. Fourth number indicates bromine. Let us take few examples so you can understand how to give the halon number. Okay, let us take the example of bromo trifluoromethane. Now, when I have to give this name, I should write capital H halon followed by the number for which it is associated. First one is the carbon. So from methane, I can conclude that carbon is just 1. If it was ethane, 2, propane 3. Okay. After that, next number is fluorine. I can see there are trifluoro. That means there are 3 fluorine atoms. I will write 3. Is there any chlorine? No, there is no chlorine. So I will write 0. For bromine, I have just got 1 bromine. So I will write here 1. This is my halon number for bromo trifluoromethane. When you sit in the exam, please see. Sometimes what they will do is, they will give you the option. In first option, they will write this entire name. In third option, they will write this, and fourth option, they will say 1 and 3. Okay, there in a rush, do not mark option 1. Okay, both of the options same. Mostly DGC will give you this name and ask you the halon number. Okay, just a second, let's go back. Let us try for this bromo chloro difluoromethane. So how will I write this halon number? I will start with halon, methane, 1 carbon. Next one is for fluorine. I can see di means 2 fluorine, right? So I will write 2 here. Chlorine, yes, there is single chlorine, so 1 here. Bromine, yes, there is 1 bromine. Okay, let us try for this chlorobromomethane. For this, the halon number will start with halon. Methane means 1 carbon. Then there is a number of fluorine. I cannot see any fluorine here, right? So I will write 0. Then should be the chlorine. Chloro means just 1 chlorine, so 1. Bromo means just 1 bromine, so 1. Okay. What you do is stop over here, take some time, take 5 minutes if you want, and try to write the halon number of all these 3 elements. Okay. After some time, please come and see whether it is done. Okay. Please start doing it. Okay. If you have already done it, see what should be the name of this. Methyl bromide means 1 bromine, 1 methyl, right? So it should be halon 1001. For this one, it should be halon. Methane is 1. Fluorine is difluoro. There is no chlorine, so 0. Dibromo means 2 bromine atoms. Carbon tetrachloride is CCl. Okay, CCl4. That means halon 1040, or in exam you will sometimes see it is written as halon 104. Okay, dear. We'll conclude our class here itself better. Next time we are going to understand how do we discharge the fire extinguisher, what is the carbon dioxide bottle made up of, And how do we discharge halogenated hydrocarbons? We have got a Freon container for this. We will understand how it is operated for the twin engine, how it is operated for the single engine. Okay, that's it, better. See you in the next class. Bye bye. Take care.